they could try and unleash or encourage their proxies, the EPs, Hezbollah, the attack Israel, maybe even directly, or they could do something themselves. Usually Biden's comment is that to try and dissuade them from doing something direct themselves at least. And if there's any good news in this part of the world, it's that it does seem like the United States and Iran are communicating, albeit probably to third parties like Qatar.
The eyes of the world are on Iran and on that region. The US has warned that Tehran is threatening to launch a significant attack after it blamed Israel for a strike on its consulate in Syria 10 days ago. The US is saying the threat is imminent and it's real and credible. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel says his country is prepared defensively and offensively for an attack. Here he is in translation yesterday.
We established a simple principle. Whoever hurts us, we hurt them. We are preparing to meet the security needs of the State of Israel, both in defence and in attack. I and the people of Israel trust you, and may we all have great success.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, the US has sent a Pentagon official to meet with Israel's military chief, and President Biden has promised ironclad support. Let's talk to Greg Treverton, who is the former chairman of the National Intelligence Council under President Barack Obama. Greg, hello again.
Hello again. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, good to be with you too. So what do you think President Biden means by ironclad support? How far do you think that goes?
I think we will probably find out. Yeah, I think he's trying to use that as a way to deter Iran from something that they might otherwise do. So stressing our support and stressing that in some sense an attack on Israel will be an attack on us, it seems to me risky, but a way to at least try to deter the Iranians from doing something direct on Israel. Happily, the Iranians, and not so happily, but the Iranians have several options. Of course, they can not do much of anything, like they did in response to the American strike that killed Soleimani, the Revolutionary Guard leader. They paid that softly. They could try and unleash or encourage their proxies, the EPs, Hezbollah, the attack Israel, maybe even directly, or they could do something themselves. Usually Biden's comment is that to try and dissuade them from doing something direct themselves at least. And if there's any good news in this part of the world, it's that it does seem like the United States and Iran are communicating, albeit probably to third parties like Qatar.
Greg, how much of a pivot is this from Joe Biden? Because for the last couple of weeks, he's been saying very clearly, Israel, Netanyahu has gone too far, too many people are dying, allow the aid in, the level of frustration is palpable. He's getting sick and tired of this. And then because of the Iranian threats, he has to pivot and say, oh, we're shoulder to shoulder with Iran and I'm sending the assets in. And if you attack them, you're attacking us.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a pivot. I think the unhappiness with Netanyahu and Israel, it obviously is still there, very much there, about the conduct of the war. As I said, I think this is probably a means of trying to get a signal to the Iranians that they should cool a bit and not defend them direct against Israel. So it's a little bit of a pivot, but it's also a tactic to try and, seems to me, avoid what none of us want, and that means a wider conflict in that region. I'm happy that seems to be not in Iran's interest either. So I'm hopeful that nothing will happen. They did actually see the money's flowing, but especially hopeful that it doesn't involve something that's plainly very much escalatory.
How much of this is about the optics back home in the US? Because although support for Israel is declining among some Democrats, particularly younger progressives and in the Muslim community, of course, more broadly, though, in Middle America, support for Israel, I think, is still strong, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think in Middle America, you're right, it is still strong. It's obviously become a big issue for Biden, particularly because younger Democrats, progressives, and others have started to point it very strongly about what's happening in Gaza. And there's news in Congress to say, okay, we should get on arms limitations and not give arms to Israel if they continue to basically say they shouldn't be doing. So that is palpable, and I think that means that to do what he did, Biden has sort of increased the political list to himself, because that is going to be down to the benefit of those who think that you should put more pressure on the deal, not indicate the open support for them.
Yeah, especially as the death toll continues to rise. I think it's officially something over 33,000 men, women, and children, and we think a good third of those are children. Just how much of an issue is that for Americans? Do you think there's a degree of empathy for them as well as for the Israelis? Do they see Palestinians as people who have a right to their own self-determination, a right to a state of their own? Or is it a case of, well, Israel's our ally, and if they have to kill these people to get to Hamas, then so be it? How's it playing in the States?
No, I think it's playing. I think there is a good deal of sympathy. Lots, of course, even places where you might not expect it, even some more liberal Jewish groups. Obviously, one of the things that's changed in U.S.-Israel relations is that as Israel has drifted politically steadily to the right, it has turned off saying that it is the quote attack, people, the liberal, not conservative. So that's about one you kind of need to mention to it. But I think more important is really the effort that the Jews invested to state empathy for the Palestinians and this horrible suffering. And as you know, a number of administrations, the United States has tried to get a two-state solution, get some sovereignty and decent living space for the Palestinians. So that essentially, I think, is long-standing. It's very much sharpened by the horror that's happening in Gaza.
And when it comes to an end to the conflict, initially an exchange of hostages, whether alive or dead, and those detained in Israeli prisons, where do you think the breakthrough is going to come? Because we've had the killing of the sons and grandchildren of the leader of Hamas, who's based in Qatar, Haniyeh. That's not going to make that any more likely, is it?
No, Hamas has really turned down, Israel they have too, but we know that Hamas has turned down several opportunities to make a deal. And in some sense, geopolitically, they don't have a lot of reason to make a deal. They've got those hostages. They've got world sympathy on their side again. So their incentives to make a deal, I think, are less than the Israelis may think they are.
Even though every day hundreds of people are being killed. And now some say, well, these guys living in Qatar, living the life of Riley, well, they're not under threat, but their own families, their kith, their kin, as we've seen, and their people are being killed. They can't care too much about them. That's what Israelis say too. Who are these people who are there living in grace and favor apartments in Doha, in Qatar, stalling while their own people are being killed by the hundred every day?
Yeah. No, as we know, that Hamas wasn't very popular in Gaza before all this. In a funny way, this has made them more popular because they've stood up to Israel in ways that Palestinians had never done. But you're right. I think there is this kind of visible double standard where the leadership is quite prepared to, fight to the last citizen of Gaza, and that's been their modus operandi from the beginning. I think they knew when they did their vicious attack that Israel would respond in kind, and that fairly quickly sympathy for Israel would erode, and sympathy for, if not Hamas, at least the Palestinian cause would increase. And that obviously has happened. It is at least they have put a brutal approach to their own people, but it has been the one that they followed from the beginning.
Yeah, and we've got an issue in the States, and another issue, looking at the ongoing problems in Congress, not to do with the funding of the military effort to support Israel, but the military effort to support the Ukrainians. And we had Lord David Cameron, the former British Foreign Secretary in the United States, meeting Donald Trump in the last few days. How successful do you think that mission was to persuade Republicans in Congress, and of course their godfather Trump, to be more supportive?
Well, I hope so. I mean, all he needs to do is really kind of shut up. Certainly the votes are there on the Republican side to do this. We're in this terrible game where the Speaker of the House is worried about seeking the Speaker. He's kind of hostage to a very small number of MAGA right, Republicans. So the vote we passed was getting it to the vote, which that's been the problem. I think it will turn out right in the end, though very late. And in my view, that I think it's Stritch's mind about Americans. If they can come in to do the right thing, have to find every other alternative.
Yes.
And that's a bit what we're doing with in this case.
That is a quote, Greg. That is a quote. And if you look at the international pages in the UK papers, they're full of analysts saying that Ukraine is in serious peril and it's in more trouble than at any point during this 2-year war. They're really running out of fighters, running out of equipment, running out of money. How would you assess it at this point?
Yeah, I think that's the right assessment. This is probably the lowest point they've been in since the beginning of the war, and had difficulty increasing conscription. They're running out of people. It's also running out of munitions and other instruments of war, and our inaction in the United States is not being any help. So this is a difficult point to change commanders and change strategies to some extent, at least we hope, to be more dug in and more defensive. But it is a bad time for them, and you have to be doing everything you can to help them, and we just can't get our act together.
Yes. If the Americans don't step up, what do you think the Europeans can do into the breach? Is there the will? Is there the money? Are there their arms?
All those are in question, I think. I think there's the will in general, and there certainly is the money, but there are the arms is another difficult one. European countries, at least the NATO members, have, on the whole, increased their defense spending over the last few years, but they haven't gotten a lot for it. And so there isn't the kind of defense industry in Europe that exists in the United States that'll take time to build. So I think it's real, and there's probably money, and whether they can actually turn that into things that would be helpful for Ukraine. That's another question. One of the bright spots is that some of the smaller countries have actually transferred systems, planes and other things to Ukraine. So that I think demonstrates the will that it is a question of capacity.
Yeah. On that bleak note, Greg Treverton, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Times Radio. And Greg is the former chairman of the National Intelligence Council, and he served under President Barack Obama.